What if I told you that hope, the very thing we're taught to cling to in our darkest moments, is actually the cruelest weapon ever forged against humanity? That every time you tell yourself things will get better, you're participating in the greatest deception of human existence. There was a philosopher who dared to speak this forbidden truth. A man so brutally honest about the human condition that he made Nietzsche look optimistic. Emil Cioran didn't just question hope, he dissected it, exposed its mechanisms, and revealed why it might be the most sophisticated form of suffering ever invented. Today, we are diving into a philosophy so dark, so uncomfortably truthful, that it will challenge everything you believe about meaning, progress, and the lies we tell ourselves to survive. Emil Cioran was born in Romania in 1911, and from his earliest years, he suffered from debilitating insomnia that would shape his entire worldview. While most philosophers worked in universities, constructing elaborate systems of thought, Cioran wrote in fragments, aphorisms, and essays that read like philosophical suicide notes. He wrote in French, his adopted language, believing it gave him the distance needed to articulate the unspeakable truths about existence. His philosophy isn't about building answers or finding solutions. It's about demolishing illusions. And the biggest illusion, according to Cioran, is hope itself. Not just naive optimism, but the very structure of forward thinking that defines human consciousness. He argued that hope is the mechanism by which we extend our suffering across time, turning a momentary existence into a prolonged tragedy. Before we descend into this abyss together, do me a favor. If this exploration challenges you, disturbs you, or makes you see reality differently, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts on hope, and subscribe for more philosophical content that refuses to sugarcoat the human condition. Now, let's begin. Imagine not sleeping for weeks, not just having trouble falling asleep, but experiencing night after night of absolute wakefulness. Your mind trapped in a prison of consciousness while the world around you rests. This was Cioran's reality as a young man, and it became in his philosophical laboratory. During those endless nights in Romania, something shifted in his perception. The protective illusions that normally shield us from reality began to dissolve. He saw existence stripped of its meaning, its narratives, its comfortable fictions, while others slept and dreamed. Cioran remained awake in a universe that suddenly appeared utterly indifferent to human concerns. This insomnia wasn't just a medical condition. It was an initiation into a different mode of seeing. Most people experience reality through a filter of purposes, projects, and hopes. We see the world as a stage for our plans, our dreams, our future selves. But when you can't sleep, when you're suspended in the raw present moment for hours that stretch into infinity, those filters disappear. Cioran discovered what he called lucidity, a state of consciousness so clear, so unmediated by comforting stories that it becomes almost unbearable. In this state, he recognized that hope functions as a kind of blindness. It's the mechanism by which we avoid seeing what's actually in front of us. We project ourselves into imaginary futures to escape the weight of the present. Most philosophy tries to cure us of suffering by offering frameworks, meanings, or solutions. Cioran did the opposite. He argued that the problem isn't suffering itself, but our refusal to accept it as the fundamental condition of existence. And hope is the primary tool of this refusal. Think about it. Every time you hope for something better, You're implicitly declaring that the present is inadequate, that reality as it is must be transcended. You're living in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction, always reaching toward a future that, when it arrives, will simply generate new hopes, new inadequacies. Cioran's insomnia revealed that consciousness itself might be a cosmic mistake. We're animals cursed with the ability to imagine alternatives to what is, condemned to live simultaneously in the unbearable present and the illusory future. And hope is the bridge between these two torments, ensuring we never find rest in either. Let's talk about what hope actually does to your experience of time. On the surface, hope seems positive. It gives you something to move toward, a reason to endure present difficulties. But Cioran identified a darker mechanism at work. When you hope, you're essentially making a bargain with time. You're saying, I will endure this present suffering because of what I imagine the future will bring. This sounds reasonable until you realize what you've actually done. You've just transformed your existence into a transaction, a means to an end rather than an end in itself. The present moment, which is the only reality you actually inhabit, becomes devalued. It becomes something to be gotten through, survived, tolerated. Your actual life, the one you're living right now, becomes secondary to an imaginary life you project into tomorrow, next year, or after you achieve some goal. Cioran called this the tyranny of the future. Hope colonizes the present, rendering it inadequate and preliminary. You're always living as if your real life is about to start, as if the genuine meaning is just ahead. But of course, when that future arrives, it becomes another inadequate present, generating fresh hopes and fresh dissatisfactions. Consider the structure of a human life organized around hope. Childhood is about hoping for adulthood's freedom. Adulthood is about hoping for career success, love, recognition. Middle age is about hoping for retirement. Retirement is about hoping for what exactly? Peace? Fulfillment? By then, the habit of hoping has become so ingrained that you can't stop, can't simply be present with what is. This is what Cioran meant when he said hope is cruel. It's not cruel because it's often disappointed, though it is. It's cruel because, even when fulfilled, it immediately generates new lacks, new desires, new futures to hope for. The mechanism never stops. You'll never arrive at a present that's sufficient. The truly devastating insight is this: hope doesn't ease suffering, it multiplies it across time. Instead of suffering only in the present moment, you now suffer in advance through anxiety about whether your hopes will be realized, and you suffer in retrospect through regret about past hopes that weren't fulfilled. Hope takes a momentary pain and extends it across your entire lifespan, backward and forward. Cioran had a radical theory about human consciousness that makes the biblical fall look optimistic. He believed that self-awareness itself was a catastrophic mistake in evolution, a wrong turn that trapped humanity in a uniquely terrible predicament. Animals don't hope because they don't have the temporal consciousness that hope requires. A dog doesn't lie awake worrying about its future or regretting its past. It exists in a kind of eternal present, responding to immediate needs and stimuli. There's suffering, yes, but it's clean, contained within the moment. Humans lost this when consciousness emerged, when we became able to represent ourselves to ourselves, to think about our thinking, to imagine alternatives to what is. We stepped out of the natural flow. We became detached observers of our own lives, simultaneously living and watching ourselves live. This split created a gap, a distance between the self and experience. And into this gap rushed all the peculiarly human torments: self-consciousness, anxiety, the awareness of death, the sense of inadequacy. We became the only animals who could suffer from the mere fact of existing, who could find existence itself problematic. Hope emerged as an attempted solution to this problem. If consciousness makes us aware that we're mortal, vulnerable, and trapped in circumstances we didn't choose, hope offers an escape. It says, yes, but the future could be different. You could become someone else, somewhere else, under better conditions. Hope is the consolation prize for consciousness. But Cioran saw that hope doesn't solve the problem of consciousness, intensifies it. Because now, you're not just aware of your condition, you're aware of the gap between your condition and what you desire. You're not just suffering. You're suffering from the knowledge that things could theoretically be otherwise, that you're falling short of some imagined potential. This is why Cioran sometimes wrote with what seems like nostalgia for unconsciousness, for the blissful ignorance of animals or the void of non-existence. Not because he was suicidal in a conventional sense, but because he recognized that consciousness might be inherently problematic, a cosmic error without a solution. And hope, far from being the solution, is just another symptom of the disease, another way consciousness torments itself by imagining it could be free of its own nature. If individual hope is cruel, collective hope, the hope embedded in ideologies, religions, and political movements, is catastrophic. This was Cioran's diagnosis of human history, and it's perhaps his most controversial insight. He lived through the 20th century, witnessing firsthand the disasters produced by grand visions of human improvement. Fascism, communism, nationalism, all these movements promised a better future, a transformed humanity, a society purged of its problems. They were all expressions of collective hope, and they all produced oceans of blood. Cioran's argument wasn't that these specific ideologies were flawed. It was that the very structure of hoping for collective transformation is dangerous. Whenever you imagine that humanity could be fundamentally improved, that we could construct an ideal society, you're engaging in a fantasy that inevitably leads to violence. Why? Because reality, messy, contradictory, resistant, inevitably falls short of the ideal, and the true believer's response is to try to force reality to conform. The French Revolution promised liberty, equality, and fraternity, and delivered the guillotine. The Russian Revolution promised a workers' paradise and produced totalitarian terror. The pattern repeats because the pattern is inherent to the mechanism of hope itself when projected onto the collective scale. Hope for humanity requires you to believe that human nature is malleable, that people can be radically transformed, that a perfect or near-perfect social order is achievable. But what happens when people resist this transformation? When they cling to their old ways, their particular interests, their backward beliefs? The logic of collective hope turns them into obstacles to be removed, re-educated, or eliminated. Cioran wasn't advocating for any alternative political system. He was questioning the entire project of political salvation, of looking to ideologies or movements to rescue us from the human condition. This wasn't conservatism or reaction. It was a deeper skepticism about the very idea that collective human life could be organized in a way that transcends suffering, conflict, and tragedy. His point was that accepting the limitations of the human condition, its inherent messiness and imperfection, is actually less dangerous than hoping to transcend them. The humble recognition that we're flawed, contradictory creatures stumbling through existence without a clear purpose or destination, this might be the only honest foundation for human life together. And it's precisely what hope, especially grand, ideological hope, prevents us from accepting. So where does this leave us? Cioran doesn't offer comfort, and that's precisely his value. In a world saturated with motivational messages, positive thinking, and the relentless ideology of progress, he stands as a reminder that honesty might be more valuable than consolation. Hope might make life feel more bearable, but it does so by preventing us from truly seeing what life is. The question isn't whether you agree with Cioran, it's whether you have the courage to examine your own hopes with the same ruthless clarity he brought to his. What are you hoping for? What would your life look like if you released that hope? These aren't comfortable questions, but they might be the only questions that matter. If this philosophical exploration disturbed your certainties, good. That's philosophy doing its real work. Share your thoughts in the comments below.